Einen herzlichen Applaus für Orlando Owen, der für heute... Also, danke bei dir und viel Erfolg, ne?
Danke dir.
These ladies are a little shy. I'm sorry, I'm gonna... Hey, how you all doing? You doing good? All right. I'm Orlando Owen, and I'm German-American. I would like to speak in English to you if it's possible. I speak German, but it's not very fluent when it comes to these things. I learned a lot of hypnosis, syntax, the way things work, and it just doesn't flow in German for me. Maybe I can learn from some of you guys how to do this stuff in German, because I don't really understand it a lot. But I got my trusty clock here, so I know I'm not going overtime. Wow, a lot of people here, a lot of men. A lot of strength, a lot of anticipation. Okay, let's do it. In the United States, I run a program called MagickMale. It's a pretty new thing for me. I've done it for a while. I used to call it authentic male power. And what I do is I help men, pickup artists, aspiring pickup artists, seducers, to kind of come to grips with what it means to be a man. It's a very confusing thing these days. And I think part of the reason you're all here is to kind of reconcile all this stuff that's been thrown at you for 50 years from society, the media, from women. It's a tricky thing. So what are we? Puas, PUAs, pickup artists, men, seducers? I grew up in Germany, and I left when I was about your all's age, about 20 or so, 19, 20, and I left Germany as a boy, and now 27 years later, I'm coming back as a man, or at least I like to think of myself as that. I do a lot of empowerment work in America. American men have been very confused about their role. A lot of powerful women out there. And the men in my programs, they do the opposite of what I did. They come as boys and they leave as men. It's a tricky thing. So I call this whole thing remasculation. What do I mean by remasculation? Well, as I said, in today's society, men have lost their way. There's a lot of criticism. A lot of guys have been accused of, oh, you know, you guys are all the same. I've heard this in Germany, I've heard it in America. They say, you guys just want that one thing. Männer wollen immer nur das eine. To which I say, you say that like it's a bad thing. What's up with that? I mean, it's like... But what's really scary is when they say things like, where have all the men gone? There's no more real men. And that's not a good thing when women say that. A lot of guys have been taught. A lot of guys have been raised by single moms in the last 50 years. And dads were either absent or very overbearing, killing your spirit. I had one of those dads, and he was German, and he made me feel very inferior a lot of times because I just wasn't his idea of, you know, a tough guy. But yet he was tough, and yet he was not a man in the sense that he came from insecurities. That's why he needed to show force, threatening. Real men don't need a show of force. They sort of know who they are. They kind of rest in themselves. They're just strong. And when girls tell us today, there's no more real men, they got a point. If you look at the people you see in the media, industry in Germany, a lot of guys are just kind of like, oh yeah, well, I just want to be this or want to be that. They don't really project any energy. They want to be nice guys. They want to be a provider. I don't know, how many of you have seen like the whole David D'Angelo, the Advanced series? It's sort of like the basis for, if you watch nothing else, that is one good thing to watch. I'm not saying you have to embrace every little idea he says, but it will give you a very good mindset about what it means to just be not just a nice guy, the wuss. And a lot of stuff comes from that program. Half the poo I've seen is based on that program in a way. You know, we all have that cocky and funny thing, that's David D'Angelo, and a lot of other ideas, but there's a lot more to it. So how do you bring back that stuff? No more real men? To which I say, let's bring back the real men. Let's be real men. Let's become real men. Let's show them that we are real men. I call it reclaim your authentic male power. So Steve, my teacher, I'm one of his 2 apprentices, Steve P., you may have heard of him. Very tough guy, very compassionate man, very wise man, good teacher. He showed me a lot of that stuff. He was talking about, he said, look, you know, over in Germany, you have this thing, you have this real emasculation. You have these tough feminazis or these feminist girls, and they're like trying to ball bust. You guys have a real chance in this country. You're young, you haven't been fully emasculated yet. You haven't been sort of like processed by the matrix, chewed up and spit out. Well, that's what happens. I mean, a lot of times girls will just kind of like, not only do they test, but it may not be in their best interest. If you guys are all, they think it's not in their best interest. In the United States, it's a little different. It's when I tell guys what I do, this whole mindset that I'm coming from, kind of like a tough alpha male mindset, the guys are like, oh, little mamby-pamby about it, where the girls are like, put some balls back on these guys, will you? I mean, that's a real quote. I mean, I've heard this 100 times. And you guys are young. You're already head and shoulders above the rest because you're taking your lives into your own hands. You're making an effort. You're asking yourself, what does this whole thing mean? How can we fix this thing in our lives, and how can we fix this thing with women, which is a real killer for guys. We attach a lot of meaning to this stuff. And if we don't get it, we become either, oh, we want to be the nice guy and try to convince them. Like David D'Angelo says, attraction is not a choice. No amount of whining or buying them gifts will get that gut level response. But what makes a man a man? In my US seminars, I ask a real interesting question to you guys. I ask them, is it politically correct to be a man? And then they say stuff like, well, you know, under certain circumstances, given this, and if I embrace my feminine side, maybe. And I say, stop! Are you all insane? What's up with that? How can you even answer a stupid question like that? It's loaded. I mean, come on. Politically correct to be a man. It's like having grown up in Germany, I saw a lot of that stuff, especially in the US. And I say, well, you're half German. Well, what about the past? I mean, they're like, oh, there's something wrong with you. And so in the beginning, when I came over there, I was kind of like hunching a little bit and like, I'm German. Well, I'm really American, but I'm kind of like half German. And I wasn't walking tall. I was kind of like a wuss, too. And I walked around, and I was like, always like a little turtle, like the sky's falling. So I ask you, is it politically correct to be German? Yeah. Thank you. I mean, that whole mindset is just wrong. And it's been said, I think it was Zan or somebody like that, one of those really cool guys out there, who said women are complicit in their own seduction, meaning they want to be seduced in a way. It's just, they just want you to do it right. Well, the sorry part of it is men are complicit in their emasculation. We allow this to happen. It's not them so much, but we were like trained to be what mom would want us to be. And she thinks, well, that's what girls want, so I better make him that. But it's like the frog. You all know the thing about the frog in the flask? You know that story? Some sick-ass scientists, they took, you gotta get into this mindset. They took frogs, right? And they got this thing, this is a technical university, they probably do this stuff here too. And they heat up water and they throw a frog in, and the frog says, yikes, and he jumps right back out, right? Any self-respecting frog should do that. But then these guys came up with another trick. They took the flask and just kind of put in lukewarm water and just put the frog in and then turned up the heat just a little bit and cooled it back down a little bit. And the frog's like, see this question mark? Heat it up like just a little more, right? And then come back down. Heat it up a little more. It's kind of like the gasoline prices, right? It's like you're always so happy when it comes back down. You say, oh, great, gasoline prices are falling by 1 cent. You know, they just got jacked up by 10. And or you guys pay almost double of what we're paying in the U.S. You know, we pay 65 euro cent for a liter, and we think that's like beyond. But anyway, so that's what society does with us. I do a lot of hypnosis, and hypnosis, if you take somebody straight down, it's great, you get a certain result. But if you take them a little bit down, you bring them back up, take them down a little harder, deeper, up and down, it's called fractionation. You'll get 10 times deeper results. It's a whole different thing. And this is sort of like what's been going on with people in this society, the media. You know, they're all talking about, oh, the macho man is out again, and a lot of good stuff. Yeah, but if you look at these results, it's like they want the provider. If you want to raise a baby, you want a guy, a cash machine on legs, great. Then the macho man is out. But you know, like 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 kids, they find out when they take these blood tests, isn't even theirs. They call it a cuckoo's egg. So like, get this, wrap your heads around this. 1 in 6 kids in the US was not fathered by the guy who thinks he's the father. I mean, I know a guy that it happened to. For 2 years, this girl was jacking him around. And that's just not a good thing. So we allow this stuff. Society tells us no, like put the toilet seat down or whatever it is. It's nice. Let's do that. I don't know, I saw a funny little postcard, and it shows these 3 pissoirs or urinals, and there's a guy taking a whiz, and 2 guys are sitting in these things like this with their pants down. It says, guck mal, der pinkelt im Stehen, hi. We're complicit in this. We allow this to happen. We want to be liked by women, and for so many years be so insecure of all this stuff that's been put in our heads, this mind virus. It's like a splinter in your mind, Neo. It ferments, and it just gets us into hot water. And eventually that frog doesn't jump out. You know, it's cooked. But we're all here not to be cooked. We're all here for one thing, right? Chicks. Chicks. That's it, right? Chicks. I wanted to bring a little box full of little kuchen. And for that, you'd learn a whole new set of skills. It's called pickup, right? So you're all aspiring puas, and that forces you to examine your role as men. And that's a good thing. For 50 years, you know, we've been told that that's a bunch of BS, and women need to find their way, and men don't. It forces you to ask yourself, what is a man? What makes a man a man? What is it? What makes a man attractive to women? And that begs another question. Who do you think you are? When you go out there in the real world, you're talking to girls, you're sarging, or you're doing whatever you're doing, who do you think you are? You're asking yourself that. I think this is one of the best things about this whole pickup thing. You have to ask yourself, who are you? And that's what we're here to find out. I'd like to get you guys, I feel a little tension, a little anticipation. I'd like to, for you guys to just do a little exercise with me. And it's a good mindset to come from when you go into any set or whatever you do, you're doing a cold approach. Just close your eyes for a second, if you will, and just take a really deep breath. Just take a really deep breath all the way into your tummy, all the way down. And just really feel that, filling your lungs up completely. And when you feel that, just let that breath out slowly. Good. And then just take another even deeper breath, just all the way down into your tummy, very deeply. Feel the energy run into your legs, feet firmly in the ground. And when your lungs up completely filled, then let that breath out very, very slowly. You can already feel your body relax. And take just one more really deep breath, get all the way up into your clavicles, your kidneys, and then hold that breath for just 1 second. Center yourself in your body, and then let that breath out very, very slowly. You can feel your body relax, and as your body relaxes, your mind will relax. And then you're back in your body. You're centered. You feel your presence. You feel that you're really there. Because women, when you go out there sarging or whatever it is, they will feel where you're blocking the energy. When you're ready to come back in the room and you just open your eyes and just feel that kind of like slightly cleared energy. Well, women will feel that. They feel like if you're coming from your head, how far you've crossed the heart-brain barrier, or the brain-dick barrier, if you will. They feel that. And it's good to be centered in that. And I'll give you a whole different, it's like in martial arts or any kind of yoga, you just ground yourself first. And that's a good stance. People always want to learn the sexy stuff, like all the tricks and ta-ta-ta, and I got you. The 3 magic words, the magic pill. But it's really just being centered in who you are. And women have these bullshit detectors. Or, you know, it's David D'Angelo talks about how they have like 10 times better peripheral vision, body cues. Women will feel exactly where you're coming from. That's one of those things why I always talk about inner game. It's the frame. Where are you in your frame? They're almost doing a quick scan like one of those Spielberg movies, and they'll just know exactly if you're actually coming from the heart or what part of you isn't present. And they'll point that out, and they'll resist it. So that's one good thing you can always do. Whenever you're feeling kind of tension, it's a very simple exercise. And people think, oh, it's just a relaxation exercise, and it is. But it's a bit of hypnosis. And that's what we're here to talk about, in part. Hypnosis is useful for a lot of things. You know the Ross Jeffries kind of thing, embedded commands, NLP-based stuff. It's great. It works. But I need a little more. It's a useful tool. It's almost more important to talk about what it isn't. It isn't mind control. And that's not the frame you want to come from when you do this thing. It's a tool to reconnect yourself with who you are, your true essence. You become whole in yourself, and you project a whole different energy. And how should I say? You need to just look at where you feel the issues in the body. And before you can go out there and do any outer game successfully, it's getting the emotional stuff cleared. This is really what I want to talk about here with you. So I ask you, so you're all hot young guys, puas, seducers, AFCs, nice guys, bad boys. What are you? Are you men of power? Men of means, men of magic. A man who naturally attracts women, but just the strength of who he is. I'm not a pua at all. I started off like most of these guys that are really successful today. I couldn't get laid to save my life when I was like 19 or whatever. And I found when I was about that age, I found a girl that was 15 years older than I was. And she hit on me, and I lost my virginity to her in a $12 Howard Johnson's hotel in Tampa, Florida. And it set the frame straight for, yeah, I'm good at this. But it also created another problem. I never picked her up. She picked me up. And then when that relationship ended, I found another one that picked me up. And so I would always cover that inner pain, that deep wound, that deep hole with more women until it became a habit, a drug. And these girls would always be the ones. I don't think I ever had to pick up anyone. It just kind of happened. And the more you're like, oh yeah, that's fine, I got it, the more it snowballs. It just happens on its own. But there's a high price for that, because I never looked at all that pain I was feeling. I was just covering it up. Then I had a really traumatic relationship at one point, one girl, and I shut down emotionally. And I would just say, hey, bring it on. I'm a pickup artist, that's what I do. I just kept doing that and doing that and doing that. And I would go through these phases where I'd be by myself, then start finding one girl, and then it snowballed. I had the confidence to have a second, a third, a fourth. And I'd juggle maybe a half a dozen of them. And then I would crash, implode almost, and then sabotage this because I just couldn't go on with that. And it made me realize something else. I thought for a long time, I felt this hole in the heart the whole time, but I was trying to cover it up with the drug called women. How do you explain that actors or people like Kurt Cobain, who have all the money, all the success, all the women in the world, why would somebody like that shoot himself? Because until you've come to that point, and I've been at that point, until you really don't have these things, you think, oh, that's going to fix it. That new car is going to fix it. Oh, another girl is going to fix it. And when you have everything, when you have money, you have the cars, the girls, fame, and you still feel even worse, then you say, oh, shit. Now there's nothing else that can pile on top of that to cover that pain. And you will internalize it, and you'll implode. And what we're going to talk about here is how to get rid of some of that stuff. Because there's very simple techniques. Whenever you have an emotional reaction or something bad happen to you, you will internalize it. You will hardwire that response. William Reich, I don't know if you've heard of him, he was a student of Freud and a very wise man. He got into bioenergetics and things like that, and he had a saying that said, the issues, meaning emotional attachments or problems, get trapped in the tissues. We have the cellular memory. The medical doctors, they'll probably yell at me for saying this, but to them there's a split between the mind and the body. There is not. It's one thing. So we get this stuff internalized, and we feel it somewhere in our body. And it's almost like, I'm a Mac guy, but like let's say you're running Windows. People tell me there's like little corrupted system resources somewhere on the bases. You can pile on top of that whatever you will. It's like the princess on the pea. It will always run into this little problem. And then the programs that you pile on top of it, like Outer Game or Women or whatever it is, keep crashing. And you don't know why that is. But there's a little thing down there, tiny thing that was maybe embedded when you were 3 or 4 years old, and maybe you had a breakup with a girl, or it's something that your grandma said to you, you're no good, you'll never do anything good, whatever it is. It gets hardwired, and it's like an emotional drift mine. You know, in the war, the British used to put out these mines. They drifted about 15, 20 meters underneath the water. You never knew where they are. They'd run into those all the time. They didn't know where they are. They just floated around. And this is sort of like all the emotional stuff. If you don't get it handled, you will run into those emotional drift mines at the worst possible time. So I think the best approach that people like Steve or I have, or Eric, Hypnotica, Rasputin, is that you need to clear that stuff out. It's like emotional plaque. You know what that is? It's like plaque is the stuff you get into your gut. And then you need to do emotional high colonics. You know what colonics are? Is when they take a tube and stick it where you don't want to really, and flush it all out. And that's sort of like the kind of work that I do. I make people aware of what that stuff is. In order to find, you have to find the drift mines to work issue-free, to work smoothly. But you need to find them first and find out what they are. And that's what these trance techniques are for. This is what hypnosis is for, self-hypnosis is for. It's a very easy way to get there. And I want to demonstrate just, are you guys, I don't know if you guys are interested in doing a little exercise. It's a very simple one. Just nod your heads if you're into that. I'll show you how to clear some stuff very quickly. Without any, it's a simple exercise, so it may seem like, oh, this can't really work. But I guarantee you one thing, you keep doing this, every time you have something come up, any kind of emotional issue or approach anxiety, whatever it is for you, any kind of self-doubt, oh yeah, a voice in your head, you can do this exercise and it'll clear it right out. I'm going to ask my lovely assistant here, Nadine, to demonstrate this for you. And you guys have a choice. It's being taped, so you may be able to see it later, and I'm going to make it available as both a written exercise on my website or as an MP3. And if you want to, you can either watch me do it with her, this exercise, or you can just do the exercise with this. So that's up to you. You guys want to play a game? All right. All right. Think of a scene, situation, or event. I can do this in German because I'm going to do a similar one in English. Do you guys want me to do this in German for a second here? Okay, I'm going to try to do this in German because we're going to do it later in English and then you know sort of what's going on. Okay. Denkt an eine Situation, an eine Szene, irgendetwas, was ihr erlebt habt, wo ihr eine Emotion damit verbunden habt. Und diese Emotion ist wie so eine kleine Zeitbombe. Und euer Leben wäre wesentlich besser, wenn ihr das nicht hättet. So von der Skala von 1 bis 10. 1 wie ein kleiner Stein im Schuh, 10. So eine. Wenn ihr vielleicht so 2, 3, 4 auf der Skala. Unangenehm und es ginge euch besser, wenn ihr es nicht habt. Ich demonstriere es jetzt mit ihr. Okay. Denk an so eine Situation, irgendwas, was dich aufgeregt hat oder emotionell aus dem Konzept gebracht hat und du möchtest ganz gerne loslassen. Und wenn du es hast, dann nick einfach. Okay, atme tief ein und fühl das, wo du das im Körper fühlst. Es hat eine Art und Weise, sich irgendwo im Körper festzusetzen. Und da spürt man es dann. Wenn man sich aufregt, zum Beispiel sagt man, ärgert mich. Und wenn du es hast, ich sehe 3 Plätze, an denen es etwa ist. Kannst du auf die Orte, wo du es fühlst, zeigen? Ja, da, genau. Da. Okay. Wie ist es alles verbunden im Körper? Wie fühlst du die Energie? Ist es Ketten, manchmal ist es wie ein Nebel, manchmal ist es, ich habe schon so schwarze Gewächse gesehen mit Dornen, manchmal. Fäden, okay. Okay, fühl das in deinem Körper, dann mach die Augen zu, nimm einen tiefen Atemzug und bring das gedanklich an einen Platz zwischen deinen Augen und Augenlidern. Und denk nicht nach, stell dir einfach nur eine Farbe dazu vor. Irgendeine Farbe, die dazu passt, die es für dich verkörpert. Okay. Und jetzt nimm die Hände, falte sie vor dir, so wie im Gebet, ungefähr in Augenhöhe, ja so, und mach sie auf, wie eine Schale. Und jetzt nimm einen anderen tiefen Atemzug, fühl das nochmal, schau es dir an. Ist es okay, das gehen zu lassen? Bist du bereit, das loszulassen? Okay. Atme tief ein und schieß es einfach aus deinen Augen hier rein, in diese Hand. Schau es dir kurz an. Und dann mach einfach be gone. Und jetzt, was du machen musst, was ihr machen könnt, ist teste es kurz in deinem Körper, ob du das spürst. Du kannst die Hände jetzt runternehmen. Fühlst du, eigentlich solltest du jetzt weniger davon spüren. Es sollte jetzt emotionell ein bisschen, fühlst du es noch? Oder fühlst du nur noch den Gedanken und die Idee, das Bild dazu? Das Bild bleibt bestehen, aber die Gedanken, die bleiben auch bestehen, aber das Gefühl dazu im Körper und dieses Emotionelle, die Verhaftung, löst sich meistens. Manchmal ist es wie ein Glas Milch, muss man es nochmal ausspülen. Ein bisschen. Okay, dann nimm noch mal einen tiefen Atemzug. Hinein. Und dann tu es noch mal in die Hände. Oberhalb der Augen, das ist wichtig, oberhalb der Augenhöhe. Und dann schieß es noch mal da rein aus den Augen. Nein, schieß es nur rein aus den Augen. Sieh es hier drin und stell dir vor, dass es sich klärt. Du siehst einfach, dass es sich dreht und langsam die Farbe rausgeht. Und wenn du das hast, dann kannst du so machen. Be gone. Okay, nimm die Hände runter. Wie fühlt sich das jetzt an in deinem Körper? Wie fühlst du es hier?
Leichter.
Leichter, okay. Es ist eine ganz einfache Übung. Sie ist nicht besonders schwer. Die meisten Leute denken, ja, das kann nicht funktionieren, das ist nur Selbsthypnose. Es ist eine leichte Form der Selbsthypnose. Aber du löst es aus dem Gewebe heraus. Und dann kannst du es auch loslassen. I'm going to go back to English because it's just very, very difficult. Thanks a lot, I appreciate it. Give her a round of applause if you would. Thank you. It takes a lot of guts for, you know, a hot blonde HB to get up in front of a bunch of puas, right? I mean, that's... Don't be hitting on her, all right? Okay, this is a very simple way to just clear stuff. And I'm going to show you a much more involved exercise. You can take this as far as you want, this exercise. What happens at a certain point when you really get into a trance and you really do this, you can get things like, why did I set up the lesson? When we got upset about anything, we think it's this, and we get really hot and bothered, but a lot of times it's not. It's something entirely different. We don't know what the heck it is. But almost every time you really do this kind of work, you find out what really upset you is something entirely different. I was full of these things when I met Steve a few years ago. And I remember driving down the highway, and this big, jacked-up Dodge truck, you know, like one of those huge-ass monster trucks, kind of passed us and cut us off. And I was like, oh, God damn it, this guy. And Steve said, stop. Just take a tour of your body. Feel this. I said, no, this guy's, no, wait, stop. Shut up. Stop. Take a tour of your body and feel this. And do this exercise I'm going to show you a little later. What's really behind this? You know, I'm not really a big alpha, you know, macho, buffed guy. And this guy in that truck really was like the big, and I knew he could beat the crap out of me if he wanted to, right? What really upset me about it, when I really went into it, it was like this fear of being dominated by this big macho guy. You know, he could beat me up, and that was what really upset me. It had nothing to do with his truck or how much oil it used or that we're in Iraq or any of that stuff. It was about that. But in my mind, I had a whole different idea of where it came from. All right, let's talk about outer game for a second. As I said, I'm not really a pua. I think it's a very simple mindset for me. I do the inner work. And as far as outer game is concerned, I rarely do cold approaches. I don't really go sarging, or I don't go to bars and clubs, but I'm somehow always surrounded by women. I don't know how, but it does happen. And I do funny stuff. If I'm doing any outer game, you need to have something to say. But it could be a real funny thing, like a little provocative comment. Like a lot of times when I'm in a club or something like that, if I really do go there and I see a girl all in the war paint walking past me, I go like, what's up with the attitude? And then, I didn't know I had an attitude, and it's on. It's that simple. You don't really need to say anything elaborate. I don't do this whole kind of like, oh, my friends are waiting outside, did you see the fight? Whatever it is. It's great. It works. But you know what? You go out to Los Angeles right now, in San Diego, and just for fun, I made some guys, you say, go over there and tell them about the fight. And they said, what? Oh, God, not another one. Like, what's up? That's like the third guy today that's come up with that line. I'm thinking, you know, it's like multi-level marketing. Eventually, these things overlap. I mean, make up your own stuff. And I have fun with it. I'm not out there to really get any outcome. I just talk to all of them. They're all my women, like Zan says. I talk to the little fat cashier over at the supermarket. I talk to the hot little brunette at the Starbucks. I talk to the cutie pie, whatever. I talk to the feminazi that's like asking me for the ticket in the train. I talk to all of them. I make fun. I have fun with them. Or I do stupid stuff like in Vegas. I remember I was walking through the supermarket. I used to live in Vegas. And this porn queen looking girl with like all like boobs out to here and this, I mean, like she was over the top, and she walked on these stiletto high heels, and she was kind of like a little less than sure-footed. And I just walked up to her, and I was like, purposefully like giving my power away. Here's my mom. I was like, wow. Oh, God, you're so... God, look at these high heels. And she was like, yeah, dumbass number 17, just the last 5 minutes. And I was like, you know, and God, they're just amazing, those high heels. And you know what? If you keep practicing, one day you'll learn how to walk in them. And she was like, and her whole frame. And we ended up talking, and she was like, after like 5 minutes, she was like, give me a phone number. She wanted to give me her phone number, right? I don't take phone numbers. It's a stupid thing, because you don't know if they're picking up the phone. When I do it differently. When I see a girl, and I'm like, no, I don't take your phone. I don't want your phone number. I don't know if you're picking it up. Just give me a hand. You need to, and then I take my pen, and I just write it right in her hand. I said, no, don't watch this for the next 6 hours. Don't get into that ADD mode. If you want to call me, do that. Otherwise, it's been nice knowing you. And it works a hell of a lot better. They will call, believe me. If you get them to write their number in their hand, I don't take phone numbers. I don't want them. But as far as outer game is concerned, do I feel approach anxiety? There's days I feel absolutely none. I can talk to 10 people. I feel 0. And then there's other days where I'm like, I can't do this. And it's when I track this in my body, it's because I'm not, for some reason, I don't feel good that day. Either I haven't slept, or I'm just not congruent with myself, or I'm unhappy because I didn't do something that I should have done right, or whatever it is. And that's all I feel. I can only work on my inner state. When I go out there, I have to be in my body, I have to be breathing, I have to feel good, playful. Otherwise, I don't do an approach. I don't go sergeant on days I'm down. I just don't do that. And it's good to have a few default moves. It's good to know what to say, anything. But it's like that thing, a lot of times a simple hey is a lot more powerful than I got this. Because it's like the same thing here. I have a concept, but I'm not really going by it because I want to be present with you guys. I want to feel you, I want you to feel me. If I'm thinking about all the stuff I'm going to say and I'm rehearsing it over and over in my mind, I'm not going to be here with you. And it's the same. If you're too, okay, you can learn this stuff until you got it down, the outer game stuff, canned routines, but it's so much work. And if you're not really feeling it here and you're not really congruent with it, it's not gonna come off right. And as I said, women will feel this. They're always in trance. Women are always in this kind of like weird little ADD trance mode. And it's a good thing because that allows you to capture and lead their imagination. You can do it like Ross Jeffries does. That's one way. There's another way, just being playful and do it like Zan. And just be there with them, and they will feel this. There's a really good program out there called AMP by Travis Decker. And he has these girls sitting there, and he has guys walk up to them. And they just stand there and then say, what was your perception of me? Or how did you feel me? And those girls will give amazing details. They can tell you exactly how far the energy went, where they were stuck, where they were in their head, how much of it was a little bullshit game. And you know, it's a big thing with guys. We cover up so much stuff, but women have incredibly finely tuned bullshit detectors. They can smell stuff. You can train yourself to do that. I remember walking around with Steve P. and Hypnotica out there in Arizona, where I used to live for a little while too, in the boonies. And you walk around with this freaky thing, like a little stick that glows on the baseball hat, and you walk like this, and you see like the 3D. And you look straight, but you look sort of like the magic eye, these pictures that all of a sudden they pop. And it's like that, all of a sudden you can see all kinds of energy. And women will feel that. They may not be able to do this woo-woo thing like reading your aura, but they can do the next best thing. They know exactly where you're stuck, whatever your issues are. They will feel it. It's almost like we're walking around with a panel of buttons. These are boundary holes, buttons. They're emotional charges. And it's like you have all these buttons. And women will see one light up, and they say, oh, this guy's got that issue, let me push that button. And it's true, that's what they do, not purposely, not because they're biatches or anything like that. They're just doing it intuitively. They can't help it. They're women. That's what they do. They're here to test us. They're a reality check for us. And they will push these buttons. And what happens is, normally, when you have a button or any kind of issue, you push it, a light comes on, and you know, oh, wow, this is number 4711, whatever it is. And you feel that. But that's not how we work. We hardwire such an emotional response to it that you get it's almost like you push the button, you say something to a guy, and it hits that point, and a little bomb goes off. Emotional implosion, or whatever it is. And you react, you create drama, whatever it is, that you don't want to create. So these exercises, what they'll do, and the one I'm going to show you in a minute if you want to see it, is that you clear that stuff, and instead of that involuntary knee-jerk reflex, where a bomb goes off, or an emotional implosion, somebody pushes that button, you say, oh, a little light bulb comes on. You say, oh yeah, that was that issue, but I no longer feel the emotional connection to it. And that's where you want to be. Because otherwise, whenever you're sergeant, you're going out there, or one of the really bad things, I teach a lot of sexuality. Tantra, if you will, I've done that. Taoism, a lot of techniques for guys, I call them pleasure sizes. For women too, to have better things, to make sure things work when you need them to. And one of the biggest issues, I think, for most guys is that you get a 10, and you have that hot, self-confident girl that Jeans Joe was talking about, and then it's time to get, as David D'Angelo says, get the job done. And you're like, so your adrenaline is pumping, and you see this girl, and somehow your insecurities will come up at that time. And you get what we call performance anxiety. And then things may not work for you. And that's one of the reasons why you want to get into this whole inner game stuff. What moves people is emotions, it's trance, it's symbols. And I'm going to be a little melodramatic here. I'm just going to I got this little sword here, and I'm going to pull it up. Behold the sword of power. Okay, now we're done with the theatrics, but what does, a little anticlimactic, but what does the sword mean? I mean, what's the whole point of it? It's a symbol of masculinity, power. It's a pretty phallic thing, you know, it's sexual stuff, but it's got a bunch of other symbolism. It's a symbol for being a man, a knight. In the old days, you didn't just pick up a sword and call yourself a knight. A knight was a guy who was a man. It was a symbol for a man who had mastered all that stuff. You had to earn the right to wield a sword, to call yourself a knight. You had to face your inner demons so you could slay outer dragons. You had to just face your fear of death. And that made you so fear-free or fear-deficient that you could go out there and do stuff. But the sword also means another thing. It's a symbol, to cut one thing from another. And that comes from Latin, decidere, or to decide. The symbol of the sword helps you to decide which path you should follow. There's two paths in life. I talked about this a lot with Steve P. And we call it the blue pill, the red pill, the path of the mundane. Mundane in English means almost the opposite of what it means in German. It means average, the path of the muggles, if you're Harry Potter fans. Or you take the path of magic, which is where you face all that stuff. You could become courageous, and you go within. And you can only serve one of two masters, fear or faith, lack or abundance, weakness or strength, pussy, poverty. So you have to make those choices very early on. Do you want to just keep going sarging and just leave everything and just wait for that to fix your inner problems? Or do you really want to go and take care of these things? On the path of the mundane, you become needy, clingy, you give your power away, you're trying to get something for nothing, you get lucky with women. And on the path of magic, you just naturally attract them for who you are. You have that magnetic pull. You walk into a room and women can feel that. You know, what we all learn from most of this empowerment stuff, we're like the alpha guy, and we walk like this, and we take up a lot of physical space. Like, that kind of body, like, you can figure a certain guy in the United States where somebody said, this is how presidents walk, Mr. I'm not going to say the name, but then you walk like this and you take a lot of, does that make you a man? I don't know if, there may be still a scared little boy inside. So presence is a whole different thing. It becomes, when you clear the stuff, you project a whole different energy. You project a presence. And when women respond to that polarity, because they can smell a man, they can smell that, almost literally. And but you cannot reach this inner state of strength unless you've cleared the stuff. Let me tell you a really sad story about a man who had a lot of choice with women, a man who met a lot of women and was pretty good at getting physical with them, taught a lot of that stuff, and made them feel things they'd never felt before. This guy was never short for women. He had a different one in his bed as long as he wanted to. It wasn't his issue. That wasn't the problem. But he never looked at the stuff. He was using them as self-medication to cover over the pain. And these women would say crazy, they were crazy for this guy. They would say things like, you can never deny me sex, or it's been 3 hours since we've last had sex, what's wrong with me? Is anything wrong with you? And they would say stuff like that, and this guy would just, enjoy that. But there would be an occasional night where one of those girls, for whatever reason, she might have not slept in 3 days, or maybe she had her period, or she was just, overworked, would just say, I just want to cuddle. And any normal guy would just shrug it off and say, oh, no problem, honey. We'll just do it tomorrow, whatever. And not this guy, though. He was like going into an implosion. And it's almost like he felt so rejected and so shut down. He would create all kinds of drama. And that one night, these women really maybe just weren't tired. But the next night, he put so much pressure on them that they would somehow withhold sex, too, for whatever reason. He'd push harder, and the more he did, the less they wanted to have sex with this guy. So eventually, he just killed relationship after relationship, needing more and more girls, crazier girls that wanted more sex just to cover that. And it completely messed up his life. And the real sad part of that story is that guy was me. It's a sad place to come from. And it was a place where I met Steve P. a few years ago. And he saw what I was going through. And he sat me down in the same chair that a few years later another Pua would sit in, Neil Strauss, you know him as Stahl, in his apartment in Alpine, and would slam me and would show me. We do exercises like the one I'm going to show you in a minute. And he'd show me how I'd linked up. He tranced me out, and he took me way back down. And I saw all of a sudden very clearly, not just intellectually, but deep emotionally, in trance, where I had linked up this dysfunction. It was when I was going through a divorce. We started naturally. When the relationship goes downhill, you have less and less sex. And I had linked up in my mind and in my heart that if a woman, for even one night, didn't want to have sex with me, that meant I was like, I should just roll over and die. I was worthless. I wasn't attractive to anyone. I would probably never have sex ever again with another woman. That's very neurotic. And it can happen even to people who have a lot of women and sex in their lives. And it wasn't until Steve worked on me and spent some time with me that I really saw this dysfunction. So we would spend time together, a lot of time. And a lot of time I just thought he was just talking to me. He would say funny things. We'd drive around and he'd make offhanded remarks and he'd slam me. And I remember the first time he did this, the second time I went and talked to Hypnotica and said, I don't think I can be hypnotized. I don't think I felt anything. I don't think I was in trance. And Hypnotica was like, whatever. The way he does that. And a lot of times hypnosis is not so much, it's not as you notice the temperature in the room change. It's none of that BS. Most of those guys don't even have any training that do that clinically. And what it is more, it's a way of thinking. It's almost like something you become. And when you do it many years, you will automatically do it to yourself. You will do it with women. you will be able to capture the imagination. We teach this stuff. And Steve was able to extract, through these methods, a lot of weird stuff. Changed my whole frame, my whole conversation, my inner dialogue, how I would approach people, women. He made me, for 1 month, he made me just, said, you can't have sex, not even with yourself. And you have to talk to a minimum of 12 to 15 people with no outcome. Just talk to them, just go out there. And he'd do all these crazy things that made no sense to me at the time. I was still trying to figure out tricks to get chicks. I was still needy, neurotic, trying to figure out what was wrong and so forth. And he just kept at it. So we spent months and months on and off together learning this stuff. And if you can learn this stuff too. It's not that complicated. It takes a while to learn it. But a lot of times when you do it enough, I don't even do formal inductions half the time. I just talk to people for a while. And the model for it is my inner spark of creator or higher self or subconscious makes a contract with whoever I'm working with, whether it's a girl or whether it's a client or whether it's a guy that needs help. And it allows them to do self-hypnosis that I just triggered. And that'll clear your stuff. So it's like layers of an onion. You peel them away one at a time. Just until, it's like that thing that Michelangelo was talking about, that statue of David. They asked him, how did you do the statue? How did you see this in this rough chunk of marble? He said, oh, I always see the angel or the David in there. I just know where to chip away and get rid of that marble around it. So you guys are all the same like that. You're all like, we're all like that. We're all like works in progress. We're not totally finished. And it's just a matter of chipping away, getting rid of all that stuff until the true self can emerge eventually. And that's when women just respond to you powerfully in a whole different way. So what runs you will destroy you. Are you guys interested in seeing maybe another exercise of that type? I'll show you this in English, and I'll show it to you in a little more detail how this works and how you can really get rid of some pretty profound stuff in a matter of minutes. Okay, if you're ready to play that game, I'm going to ask Sylvia. Give her a round of applause. Thank you. And again, I don't know if you guys want to do this, if you want to just watch, and then you know how to do it. And Steve P. agreed. He gave me permission to show this stuff, because this is really his development. But you guys can, for a little while, download this off his website. I'll give you the data later, or of mine, as an MP3. Or you can just watch, or you can just do it right now and try to remember it. But we'll make it available to you. So if you just want to watch, that's fine. And I may make her open her eyes at times when I would normally have her close it, just for demonstration purposes and for the camera. All right. This is called the complementary opposite. And it's where that exercise I showed you before with Nadine is sort of like a handgun. This is more like a shotgun or a rifle. It's for the bigger problems. And there's various levels of it. So if you're ready to think of a scene, situation, or event that your life would be better without, if you let this go, then just nod your head. And then just close your eyes. And tell me where you feel that in your body. Just point to the spots. Take a deep breath, feel it first. Take a deep breath, feel that issue, that problem. And then just point to the spots. Just here? Yes, that's it? Just one. A lot of times there will be other spots. Rarely is it the heart. That's the really deep stuff. You only get to that point usually after you've done this exercise a few hundred times. Okay, can you see a color with it? Bring it back. Close your eyes for a second and just take a deep breath and bring this up to a space between your eyes and your eyelids, or maybe your third eye. And just give it a color. Suspend disbelief here for a second. This is called synesthesia, when you link up overlapping things like sound, vision, and words. What color would it be? You don't.
At this time, it's yellow.
It's a yellow thing? All right. You don't need to tell me what it is, because I do secret therapy. I just want to know if you have it. And then close your eyes again and just see this thing again. Now take your hands back up like we did before, above eye level. Now see in this hand like a clear sphere, like maybe the size of a basketball or bowling ball. And when you're ready, take another deep breath and shoot this thing out into this ball. Just keep holding your hands above eye level because it shuts off the internal dialogue. There's a technical reason for it. And when you see it in this ball, just see it in there and just see the color and see a label across it, like a name. It could be something like betrayal or whatever it is. You know, it's a fairly specific thing. And if you don't think about it, usually a name will come up, what this is, what really upsets you about this. And when you see that, very clearly, it's now outside your body, it's in here. So without moving your hands, I'm going to turn it around, like, I'm going to turn it 180 degrees around. Now you're looking at now it's back here, you know, you're looking at the opposite color. And what would be the opposite emotion of this? A better feeling emotion. Keep it above eye level. And you don't have to tell me what it is, just if you see a color with it, can you tell me what the color is?
At this time it's orange.
Orange, okay. It's not a physical complementary color. It's just another color. And you see those two things. Now we're going to turn it around again. Which hand is your dominant hand? Your right hand?
Right hand.
Okay, put the good one in your right hand, your dominant hand. I'm going to turn it around like this. Now you see the yellow, the negative stuff here, and you see the positive stuff, the orange on this side. There's a fine line in this ball. Now you can crack it apart, take it apart like this. Now put the bad thing on top and the good thing on the bottom. Now let this go into like a sheet of ice. Let it turn into a sheet of ice. Now you can take your hand down and just see it here in your mind's eye. The yellow bad thing is here. Keep that right hand up and see a big flame coming out here. The orange, see it as a big flame, which burns it away. And it just evaporates it, like you can throw some chi in there and just let it go until it evaporates, like a chemistry thing, and see it until it clears all the way. If it evaporated completely and it's gone all the way, it might take it. Let me know when you see it completely clear. If you need to close your eyes, you can do that. But eventually it will clear. And notice the clearing already when it's boiled off. Do you have that?
Yes, I have.
Okay, sometimes it takes like 15, 20 seconds to do that. Depends on how serious it is. Okay, now, take that energy back and put it right back through your eyes. And put it right back, take a deep breath and put it right back in your stomach. Okay, when you see it there, now feel it and notice the clearing. Now you need to test this. This is the really important part. You need to feel if you can bring back any of the emotion. Can you bring back any of it?
It's clear?
It's clear, completely.
Completely.
A lot of times what happens is like a glass of milk and it'll have like a residue. Like, you know, when you take a glass of milk and you spill it and there's still like the white stuff. You can go one more time, take a deep breath and do like what we did, the be gone. But every time you do this, you just, whenever it's cleared, you just bring that cleared energy back in through your eyes or your eyelids. Okay. And then when you do it, you just integrate it back into your stomach. There's various ways to do this. You can get very elaborate with it. I do an even more elaborate exercise when there's a really hardcore issue, and I've run into those, like the one I was talking to you before. What I'll do is I'll hold it here, and at first, when I see the bad thing, I'll say, why did I set up this lesson for myself? And it'll usually dawn on me if I don't think about it. And then I'm very anal about this stuff. I kept a big book, this big, and I wrote over 400 of these exercises over the course of maybe 6 or 7 years. And it took a long time to peel these layers of an onion away. It's like, for a while you get through it, and then there's like a clearing. And you think, oh yeah, now it's smooth sailing. Until you run into another drift mine, and you realize, oh, this one, no, it's opened up a whole new Pandora's box, and you peel away more layers. I guarantee you, if you keep doing this kind of exercise regularly, time and again, time and again, time and again, you will clear, you will find issues you didn't even know you have. But this is, the thing about it is, it's not about wallowing in this stuff. It's not something where you just create problems where there aren't any. It's that you truly need to find the drift mines and diffuse them. Otherwise, you run into them whenever you're trying to do game. And that's not a good thing. So this is one way to really do it. When you can do one more thing here, which I kind of forgot to show. when you have it, you take it clear. You breathe it in, take it in, into your tummy, focus on the tummy, breathe in, focus on the tummy. Exhale, focus on the head. Exhale it back out. Inhale, bring it into the tummy. Exhale, focus on the head. When you exhale, okay? Inhale, focus on the tummy. Exhale, focus on the head. And now let it be all gone and go. Be gone. And then it's usually cleared. Feeling better?
Yes.
Cool. Give her a hand, please. So this is the kind of stuff that we do in trance work. We do a lot of other stuff. One of the things we do is a lot of times, I used to have this real issue. I was at that time maybe 40, and I was kind of like, I had this conversation in that a certain type of girl or real young girls wouldn't want to date me. Because I thought, oh yeah, well, I'm not 21. Why should a 21 hang out with me? And I had this, and I told Steve this, and I was like, oh, yeah, these 21-year-olds, they're just stupid. And I said, stop. Shut up. Track it in your body. And then and I did this issue release, and I saw a whole different thing behind it, which I'm not going to go into. But what we also did, he said, look, everything you believe, every limiting belief is an illusion. It's just an illusion. You always have illusions of some sort. My illusion is that every girl I see wants to interact with me in an R-rated way. So he's a pretty blunt guy. He put it a little differently. Anyway, he said, my illusion is she wants to, and just for 30 days, pretend that that's what it is. Just go around, and every girl you see, instead of saying, oh, she would never want to have sex with me, go and say, of course, she wants me. She can't help it. She's a woman. And at first your brain goes, BS, BS, BS. It's not true. I'm just. And if you keep doing this, one habit, it takes about 30 days to replace a bad habit with a good one. And if that's your new illusion, you can create magic with it. And the funny thing is, what happened after I was done with these 30 days, 20-year-olds would pop up everywhere, and they would be right there. And they said, oh, if you want to go back to this illusion, Orlando, that's fine. No, that's quite all right, Steve. I think I'll stick with this one. So, all right, there's just a few. This is just one of those things you can do. We talked about being a man, being a knight, being what makes you attractive. I'm going to wrap this up pretty quickly here. I don't know how much time we have, but I'm just going to go into a few key points about mindset or frame, if you will. Qualities of a man. And one of those is to be complete in yourself. That's the number one thing. You don't need anything from anyone. You're just walking through your life, and you are who you are. And as long as you need anything from anyone, particularly women, you won't get it. You're like that little whiny little biatch guy that's just crying for his ice cream. Mommy, but it worked on Mom. Well, it won't work on chicks, okay? They know, they see you coming. It won't work. You need to know who you are, and that's where one-itis comes from. By the way, this girl here, to illustrate one, I've been accused of one-itis. They say, oh, you're out of the game. No, I'm not out of the game. I enjoy talking to all of them. I have fun with it, I flirt. But all of a sudden, I feel no need to prove anything or no need to be. I have this one woman in my life, and it's for the first time in 20 years of being Alfie and just doing all this stuff and thinking I needed more and more and never finding anything, I'm able to connect to one. But what I did to do this, except in addition to working with all this stuff that Steve does and Eric does and I do, I went for a year and a half and didn't date any girl, because finally I had peeled so many layers away of this stuff that I was actually feeling my heart for the first time. I felt, okay, this is the 7th layer of the onion. This is the core issue. Now we're getting to the real meat of this. And I worked through this stuff. And for a year, I was like, I had this one girl come up to me. She said, "You've been an escort, right?" And I was like, "How do you know?" And she said, "It takes one to know one." So she just put her hand on my heart. And ever since then, for a year and a half, I could not go near any girls. Could not do it. I was like, whenever any girl came close to me, or I was trying to have sex with her, it was like an elephant was sitting on my chest. I just couldn't do it. So I had to say, "I'm sorry, I need to rearrange my sock drawer. I'll talk to you later." And I just left. And for a year and a half, I went through this stuff. After like being Mr. Pua and going through hundreds of women, literally, that made me just feel even more empty and more empty. I just finally took a break, didn't substitute one relationship with another, and went through a year and a half of just being almost celibate. And that made it possible. I came back as a man, I think. It was like a death, like a shaman, a knight have to face death. We do this in our program, the MagickMale Program. We confront you with your fear of death very drastically. It's like an initiation school in Egypt. And I went through one of those. But this was the one thing that no school had prepared me for. And I went through it, and after that, I was all of a sudden able to do this and to be present with a woman. Okay, number 2, vision and purpose. What we all do, we go through life and we can take these girls or leave them. But if a lot of times we meet that one and we want her so bad, we kind of forget why we're here, where we're going. We give it all up. And that's losing your vision, your purpose. Like David Data, I don't know if you're familiar with his work. He's a pretty interesting guy, and he talks about this stuff, how you can be... No woman wants to be your number one. She wants to be the most important human in your life, certainly the most important female in your life, but she doesn't want to be the most important thing in your life. The sun does not revolve around the earth. Like David D'Angelo was saying, can't you have a 50-50% relationship totally equal with a woman? And David D'Angelo went like, yeah, you can. It's called she owns you. And a lot of feminists or guys said, oh, that can't be true. No, it's 51-49, pilot, co-pilot, sun, earth. Once the sun starts revolving around the earth, the whole solar system would collapse, and that woman will leave you. Even if what women say they want, what they think they want, and what they really want, those things have nothing to do with each other. We like to think of them as Boolean math. These things overlap. I don't know if they're even on the same page. I don't know if they're even on the same planet. They all want the nice guy that's like opening the door for them. We know that's not true. But if you put them before your life's purpose, if you don't have somewhere to go, it's not just having a life. You stand for, they say a man who won't stand for something will fall for anything. And that's really what this is about. Know where you're going, what's your purpose, why are you here, what's your gift to the world? Contribution, if you will. You don't need to get too metaphysical or moralistic with it. But you know who you are, what you stand for. And no woman can, you're like a ship, steady as she goes. You stay in your course. And women will come to a man who has that. But if you make her the adventure, she will leave. It's very, very sure. Okay, rejection. When you come to this whole thing about approach anxiety, Steve told me one thing, because I had it really bad. For many years, I didn't have any game. I never needed to. Women came to me. He said, well, then you'll always be left with the ones that are kind of dominant and aggressive. That's not the ones you want, I don't think. You want to be dominant. You need to learn how to pick the women you want. But then I was presented with this whole idea of, wow, it was against my whole belief. I said, well, then I'm like a salesman. Then I'm like the Chris Rock thing where I say, hey, you want some dick? Can I help you with that shopping? Want some dick with that? That's what most guys do. I mean, it's the truth. And we cover it up pretty thinly, but it's not real. But if you walk up with that intention, you're already automatically setting yourself up for rejection. He told me one thing. When I was like doing this whole thing, talking to 10, 15 people a day, he said, I said, yeah, I can't take rejection. He said, you can never be rejected unless you reject yourself first. We are always complicit in our own rejection. And on some level, and this comes in with things like when you go and this whole thing about tens. I remember Hypnotica talking about this. He said, this whole thing about tens, objectifying women, is a bunch of BS. It's the biggest bunch of BS ever laid on guys. As far as he's concerned, and I agree completely, there's either a 1 or a 0. She's either right for you or she's not. And if she's a 10, what does it make you? I mean, how you guys feel about yourselves? Honestly, not the bravado, I'm the catch. That's a great frame to come from, but what are you? Like, are you looking like Tom Cruise or whatever? If she's a 10 and you feel like, oh, but I'm just like an average looking guy, I'm a 5 or a 6, then that leaves a gap that you need to fill. And you can talk a big game, but if you don't feel like you're that catch, you'll feel needy, or you'll feel like, oh shit, she's gonna cheat on me, or I'm just not that. And why would you see a guy that looks like Brad Pitt and you say, well, why wouldn't she go with him? Objectifying women that way is a very dangerous thing. You need to really look inside and figure out, why do you think you want what you want? Is that really what you want? Yeah, of course, everyone wants the hot babe. Oh yeah? Why? Because your buddies said it, peer pressure? What if the girl you really liked was a 7 and she was really cool, and that 10 was a snooty biatch? Is that what you want? I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. I mean, I've dated a lot of that type of girls. And most of them left me an emotional wreck eventually. So I don't know. I mean, those 10s, I look for a girl where I feel in my heart that she's there, present with me, and if she's not, she's a 0. I don't care who she is. And beauty is very common, as Mystery says. It's only skin deep. I mean, there's tons of HBs out there. But pick the ones that are good for you. Because if you don't get the stuff handled, and if you just get the law of attraction, you know this whole metaphysical thing, The Secret? Well, the law of attraction says you can only attract a girl that's as screwed up as you are. I don't care what she looks like. I've had really hot girls, but they were like strippers and stuff like that, or they weren't good for me. They weren't even fun to be with. At the end of the day, I talked to I remember sitting there with Steve in Sedona, Arizona, and there was this player, this musician, this jazz singer, this handsome black guy, and he had always like Steve said, he smells like pussy. He did. I mean, he had like all these girls, and this girl would say, you ready to come home? And he said, no. I'm leaving. Okay. And he just had this, he just wasn't swayed. He was so solid in who he was. And, you know, after all these girls were like leaving, and Patrick, and I knew he was one of the worst players I've ever met, DJ in LA, and he said, you know what? At the end of the day, the girl for me would be the one that I'm just happy. You know, when you're driving in the car and she's sitting there next to you, wouldn't you just be, if you're happy that she's there, just happy that she's there, then she's the right one for you. And if you're not, what the hell are you doing with her? Couple. So, all the outer game, thanks. Appreciate it. I'm almost done. All the outer game in the world, no matter how you slice it, no matter what you do, if you want to get a little metaphysical with it, if you're broadcasting on 101 FM, you can only attract, you can only be heard by people who are tuned to 101 FM. You can't attract a girl that's outside your frequency. You'll attract the ones that are as messed up as you are. So if you want better girls, be a better guy, which is like that whole thing about I'm the catch. Otherwise, it becomes an empty affirmation. Like the guys and girls in the bathroom mirror says, little sticker, post-it note says, I'm rich, I'm beautiful, I'm happy. No, you're not. It's an empty affirmation. And what's up with this whole women are the enemy? I don't know if you read that on any blogs lately. No, there's a war of the sexes. They come up to Steve or whoever, and they say this. No, man, there's a war of the sexes. To which I say, like, change the way you look at things. Wayne Dyer talks about this. Change the way you look at things, and the women you look at will change. If you think they're the enemy, then why the hell are you sleeping with the enemy? I mean, it's not like a digital fortress, like a lockbox that you need to crack, you need to hack into, sitting there like, how can I get into her pants? That's a really bad frame to come from. Not because it's wrong, I don't care, but because it's not gonna work. And the last point I want to make just here is honesty and integrity, quality of a man too. I'm not saying, oh yeah, this and that. Direct game, indirect has nothing to do with it. There's a saying, and I've found this out many times. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Have you heard that? You know what that means? It means if you're not clear in your frame about what you want from a woman, or what kind of relationship do you want, monogamy, serial monogamy, polyamory, juggling a bunch, hair management, menage management, twosomes, threesomes. I've done all these things. And not just once. But the thing is, in the beginning, I was so needy, and I just figured, oh, men will say anything just to get whatever it is, to get in their pants. It'll come back to bite you. And I don't care if that girl is like a sweet little girl when you say these things. Women will have sex to get to the comfort. Men will say anything to get in their pants. They will feign comfort and all this stuff. I'm not saying you should be goody two-shoes, nice, lovely little guys. It's not what I'm saying. I mean, I used to be kind of like a bad boy. But I used to cheat and lie and do whatever it took to hack into her pants. And you know what? I've had to eat. I mean, I've had people in Miami do like Santeria on me, trying to make my thing not work and fall off and all this stuff. It's just not a good thing. It's not something you want to experience. So just whatever it is, tell them up front. If you want multiple lovers, and I know this is possible, I've done this many, many times where I told them up front, look, you're not going to be the only one. Let's just make this clear. There's 5 others or 7 others or whatever. You're not going to be the only one, and I want to be very clear about it. Some of them didn't hear it, and they figured, oh, this is a bad boy, we'll tame him. I'm that one that will tame him. But generally, just see them as human beings. Don't toy with their emotions. Just, if you're solid in who you are, and you don't come from pussy poverty, you don't need to mess with another human being. And Anam Kara in Gaelic and Celtic means a friend of the soul, and there's no greater sin, they say, the Celts, you know, the magic people, than to betray the trust of an Anam Kara. And it will follow you many lifetimes, they say. So the one thing that I like to do is just to be really straight and just stay with that. And just state my intentions very clearly and find out what they are. And if I can't be faithful, say so. If you want to be Alfie, that's fine. But also remember how it ended. I watched Alfie a couple of years ago. I don't know if you know that movie. And I'm man enough to admit that I watched this movie by myself, and I cried for 45 minutes after that movie because I saw that's the ultimate in emptiness, and that's me. And I don't want to live that anymore. And that's when I went into this whole stop working on myself, self-hypnosis stuff. And that's pretty much all I want to talk about. If you guys, I want to open it up for questions if you have any. And otherwise, I'll just tell you where you can, if you are ready to do that kind of work. I'm going to do a little seminar just for about 3 or 4 guys. I have a house near Freiburg in the Black Forest. And I can do it in German mostly. I'll mix it in. And it's going to be half price off. So if 3 or 4 of you guys want to do this, I can accommodate you at that house. And it's going to be like a 2 or 3 day workshop. And if you want to do that, you can go and put your name on the mailing list, and I'll give you the data for that. If you want to get in touch with me, we took our websites down because of some stupid stuff with autoresponders that happened, but they're going to be back up in a few days. And if you guys want to have a recap of everything that I talked about, like a PDF, like a 10-page thing, that tells you a little bit about how to do this stuff and some of these exercises, What you need to do is go on the website. It's going to be called Magic with a CK, MagickMale, one word, MagickMale.com. And it's going to be up in a few days, and then you can go and register. And then if you do that, you'll also get an ebook. It's about a 100-page ebook that's a lot more elaborate about inner game that you can get half price. It's normally like $40, and you can get it for like $17. And if you guys have any questions, I'm glad to answer that. If you want to get in touch with me, it's Orlando. It's Owen Orlando, backwards. OwenOrlando@gmail.com. And I have a bunch of business cards here that these lovely girls will have ready. If you guys run into them, or if you run into me, I'll give you the business card, I'll give you the email and the website. It's a pretty cool program. And it'll get you into trance, it'll get you to examine this stuff in a non-painful way, and you can really find a way to release all that stuff. Any questions anyone has? I'm here to answer them. Yeah, it's exactly. I'm sorry. It's not like U.S. mail, M-I-L. It's M-A-L-E. It's magic, C-K, mail, M-A-L-E.com. And it'll be back up in a few days. We're working with the stupid autoresponder thing. And all you need to do is put your name and your email, 0 spam, I guarantee you. It's the same as if you logged on to David D'Angelo or White Tiger Tantra, which is something that Steve does, or any of that. Or you can just send me an email at owenorlando@gmail.com. And I'll pass out some business cards later. All right, thanks. Thank you.